You're listening to the Australian Hunting and Beyond podcast with Matt, where we talk about hunting, shooting, fishing, camping, and everything else that the great outdoors has to offer. Let's get into it. G'day everyone. Before we get into today's episode, just wanted to shout out Ryan Moody Fishing. He's given us a discount code for listeners so you can get some money off his online courses where you can learn from an absolute legend. So please use the code AHB25 to get a bit of a discount on those courses. Go check him out. You'll learn a lot. Alrighty, let's get into it. All right, nothing better than a fishing trip or a fishing time in summer, and we're in the prime right now. I've had didn't get to do as much fishing as I wanted in the last trip, but hey, that happens. So tonight I've got a fantastic guest on, an absolute wealth of knowledge, Ryan Moody from Ryan Moody's Fishing on Instagram. If you haven't seen it, you need to. Mate, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks, buddy. Appreciate it, mate. And big g'day to all your listeners.
Well, let's dive into your background because you've done a fair bit of different stuff in the fishing realm. So do you want to give people a bit of a heads up on just where you've come from and how you got your start and all that?
Yes, pretty much, mate. Well, I left school pretty early in grade 10 and I started doing a bit of work on commercial boats, mackerel fishing. I didn't hang around and do that for too long because I quickly gained an interest in game fishing because while we used to chase the mackerel, we'd sometimes hook up a few marlin and all that sort of thing. And I thought, gee, they look pretty special. And so from there, I jumped over to the game fishing boats, the charter boats, and worked Cape Bowling Green for a while out of Cape Townsville. That in its heyday, it was one of the best billfish grounds in the world, the light tackle billfish grounds. And there was a number of tournaments up the coast as well, like Dunk Island, the Sheraton International, which is basically a Townsville tournament, and then on to Cairns. And then the heavy tackle up here in Cairns, and a little bit off Townsville as well. So, the heavy tackle of Cairns is all about the 1,000-pounders. That's when we throw the little rods out and bolt the big ones in. But I haven't done that for a while now. That's just back in my earlier days. But after that, I met my first wife up there. She was a hostess on the motherships, and we came back to Townsville and established my own charter boat business, and mostly doing barramundi fishing charters. And then I also added a reef boat after a few years, and we were doing trips out to wonky holes and places like that in between the reef and the mainland, which are these little underwater springs that come up. They hold some really, really good fish on them. They're only small and they're pretty hard to find, but some really fantastic fishing. So I had both the barramundi and the reef charters there going for around about 33 odd years. And so I retired in 2018. And Karen and I, we've had our online fishing course business now running for a bit over 10 years, 11 years or something like that. We're the first ones to do it in the world. And we've come a long way. We've got a number of courses out now on tropical species. Most of them are Northern Australia, but we do have sounder courses, and we do have some of our courses overlap with a lot of fish around the world, because you kind of get fish in that foraging range, like all the legianid species, and then you got things like your groupers and your coral trout and cods who feed a little bit different. They're more predatory and opportunistic, whereas your foragers will forage and move around, and some of them will do a bit of both. Some foragers will leave the bottom and go up and feed into a bait school and that sort of thing too. So our courses do cover our fingermark course, even though it's based on fingermark in Northern Australia. It's actually doing really, really well in the southern states on things like pink snapper, jewfish, ball-chin groper, all kinds of things down there, because they have all the same habits and they like to be in all those same kind of areas. So some of our courses do overlap. We're doing an offshore one at the moment, which covers all sorts of features. It's not so much species-based. That will also be a worldwide course. But sounder skills 2 would be our biggest worldwide course, because fish targets are fish targets and depth sounders are all the same, no matter where you are in the world. So that's basically all our courses. And what we've done over time, I've thrown a little bit of aquarium collecting in there. I used to dive for a guy catching aquarium fish as well. But that's pretty much my full history, mate. We've been working and living on the water ever since I was a young fella, and Enjoyed every minute of it, and we're still going strong.
Mate, firstly, before we get too far into the podcast, you guys have been very generous and offered up a coupon or a discount to our listeners. So if they jump over, hang around, guys, and we'll tell you that a bit later on. But it'll also be in the show notes. So I do appreciate that for our listeners, which is fantastic stuff.
My pleasure, mate.
But, mate, you've got such a breadth of things you tell. I love, I haven't got to do much of it because I haven't spent limited time in the Northern Territory and up around Townsville myself, but I haven't done much barra fishing, but it's something that's right on my bucket list to do because they are unbelievably tasting. They are my favourite fish to eat by far, and watching the fighting that they put on in those little estuaries, man, that's cool. Like, what do you prefer? Do you prefer chasing them, or do you prefer getting out on the deeper water and going for that?
It's funny, because most of my career in the charters, even when I had the reef boat operating as well, I was still doing barra. It could be barra one day, reef the next. But more often than not, it was barramundi because we used to cancel quite a few of our offshore days through bad weather. But there would always be so many people from the charter that want to jump on and head down the estuary and have a fish at least, After 33 years, as soon as I retired from the barra charters, I started getting back into more offshore stuff and things that I used to do a lot of years ago that I'd sort of starved myself a little bit with, chasing the big finger mark on the headlands and jigging for trout and all kinds of different offshore stuff. So I've been doing a lot of that, and I've actually been neglecting the barramundi over the last few years, but I'm going to get back into it big and strong this year, starting very shortly. February 1 is the opening of the barra season. So, looking forward to that. But yeah, mate, the barramundi, they're pretty iconic. You can't beat them really. They just that big jump, especially the big silver saltwater fish, and especially the oceanic, the variety, which they get that orange tinge in the mouth and on the fins and everything else, and golden fins. That your listeners might be interested in this because a lot of people seem to think that barramundi all grow up in the billabongs and then they go out into the salt water later on. Well, that's not always the case. It all depends on the wet season. They don't have as much mortality up in the billabongs as they do in saltwater, but when the eggs are released, it's got nothing to do with rainfall. It's all got to do with moon. And if it's a bad wet season, a lot of the eggs will not make it to the billabongs. They will actually remain in the salt, which is fine. They still hatch, but they have everything like herring, mullet, and everything feeding on them when they're this little totally microscopic blip floating around in the current lines. So the baitfish kind of get their own back when the barras are larvae. But when they grow up in that salt water, they become those really crystal clear silver fish with the golden tails. So we sort of refer to them as oceanics, and some years when all the floodplains actually cover and the fish can get away from the larvae can get up away from the main current, they wander up on the floodplains and then get up into the billabongs that way. And that's when you get a lot of the fish in the creeks and rivers that are actually grayer in colour, and they have darker tails and darker fins, and they don't have any of that orange inside the mouth and all that. Well, they're your fish that grew up in the billabongs. You could have an oceanic fish and a billabong fish that were brother and sister, except one of them made it to the billabong, but the other one didn't. So that's pretty much how it works with the barras. But yeah, the big silver ones, mate, they're my favourite too. Love them.
They're unreal looking, and you're right, just the iconic, out of the water, shaking. It's just, it's a picture to behold. You got to love that sort of thing and whatnot. Hey there, listeners. Are you looking for that awesome hunting t-shirt or hoodie to level up your wardrobe? Well, head over to the AHB store and check out the range that we have to offer. We have a variety of different collections for you. So whether it's supporting the show, hunting, fishing, camping, drone fishing, or something else outdoors, we probably have something there that is for you. Each piece is designed so that you can look great whilst representing your outdoor passion. Whether you're down the local, hanging with friends, training for the rut, or just chilling at home, there's a design to suit. Just search Australian Hunting and Beyond Linktree and head to the store. What are you waiting for? You're just one click away from representing that outdoor passion with style. So, let's get into that new clothing. I alluded off air. I said to you, I'm really bad for seasickness. Like, I mean, I'm take the cake. Like, my old man's a diehard fisher and always has been. And I remember the whole of pretty much all our holidays were down the south coast of New South Wales, and we'd go out in the boat. And I tell you what, it got that bad. I'd rock up to the boat ramp and just look out at the waves, and I was over just chundering. Like, it's that bad. And I used to hate on my brother a bit because he'd be hanging upside down and he'd be fine. And I couldn't go out. Half the time I'd be dropping off back to shore. I've done a couple of sort of charters that were okay, but geez, I don't know what it is, because you chuck me on a roller coaster, hang me upside down, spin me around, no issues. Put me on a rolling boat and I'm just cooked. It's crazy.
It's funny, mate. Like, over the years, I've seen so many cases of seasickness as well, and I'm very lucky. I don't even understand or the feeling of what it's like. I'm one of those very, very lucky people. But yeah, some of the cases, I know people who actually don't get seasick when the boat is really rough, but when the boat is sitting on a glass, calm day, and there's a tiny little bit of ocean swell, and the boat is just doing this, and there's over the side vomiting.
Yeah, right.
It's really, really strange how it affects people differently. And some people, once they throw up their food, their breakfast, they're fine. They're good for the rest of the day, especially if they can get water into them and keep hydrated. Other people, just all day, ring the chopper.
Yeah, mate, that's me. Much. I'm over the side. Look, if I jump in the water for a dive, I'm good. So and traveling when I'm moving through, no problems. As soon as we pull up and that swaying sort of rocking feeling, I'm out. You put me on a lake or anything, obviously I'm fine. But you put me out in the ocean with that little roll, or a decent roll, I should say. If it's really glass flat, I'm pretty good. But I'm done, and it's it for the day. Like, I'll be back on land, and it'll take a couple of hours to recover. Still, it kills me because I love fishing, and I tend to try and do a bit more from land now as opposed to the boat. Because it does ruin it, unfortunately. But no, my wife keeps joking about putting me getting the injection that they give people on the cruises, and see if that will help out so I can get out a bit more out sea. But mate, what's so you talked about marlin before, and you got a beauty hanging up behind. It's fish taxidermy was one I didn't even know existed, which is probably a bit daft of me. But had a couple of people on that do it. So bloody awesome. But most of your marlin and that you tag and release, I'm guessing.
Yes, mate. Yeah, it was all catch and release. Occasionally, back in the day with the big fish up north, you might get an overseas client who might want to hang up a big one to get their picture, but it was pretty rare, actually. It was, 99% of the fish are released up there. And the light tackle, of course, that's all tag and release as well. And there's been some great information come out of it over the years, and to help people understand a little bit more about the species, their movements, their migrations, and why they have good years, why they have bad years, current interaction with as far as temperature goes. So it does. Sends back a lot of good data to find out a lot more about these species to be able to monitor these populations of fish and make sure we are looking after them. But yeah, mate, that one on the wall is only a little one. He's only about 350 pound, I think, that one. Even though we've caught them well over 1,000, we haven't got a room big enough here to actually put one.
I was going to say.
Yeah, and that's fiberglass, actually. A guy here in Cairns
nice.
Does an amazing job. Yeah, and that was one a client didn't pick up or something. He never came back to pick it up after so many years, and he had a line there, so he offered it to me and for a good price. And I thought, right, let's get it on the wall.
100%. What's the biggest thing you've noticed in your time? Because you've done obviously quite a breadth of fishing. Has there been much change in the amount of fish? It's gone up and down. Have you seen?
I've seen some rivers chop and change a little bit over time. And that can be something to do quite often with number of wet seasons in a row. Sometimes wet seasons will occur in different parts of the state or country. Some areas will suffer. Some areas will get it good. So as far as populations of fish on a yearly basis, it can chop and change a little bit. Pardon me. But over time, I would say that, yes, back in the early days when we first started the Barrett charters, there was certainly more fish around. But there are still some very, very healthy populations today. And because back in those days, it was absolutely insane, 50, 60, 70 barras a day in populated areas like Townsville, And, we thought long and hard about the species, and we, unraveled them and worked out a lot more about them. Then we worked out how to catch them in winter, and then how to target the bigger oceanic fish. That's when I became known as a big barra specialist, and that's when we used to be booked out for a year or more in advance with people wanting to come and catch bucket list barras, which were all released, of course. We used to let people take a smaller legal size one home to eat, but that was it. We had our own kind of boat limit, even though the bag limit's 5 per person. And we used to always tell our clients that's what we're about, and we're all about catching bucket list fish, and we let a lot of fish go. But if you want to go on a meat trip, maybe book a reef boat and head out the reef.
Yeah.
So we used to look after our barra stocks and everything as well. So, it was a great time, mate. Lots of fish and by having a lot of fish, it was easy to start putting things into place as far as characteristics of the species. So you could, we got a better grasp on them a lot quicker with more numbers of fish. But honestly, mate, the fish stocks are very, very sustainable today, and really not much less than 30 years ago. So, and I've noticed that with finger mark as well. They're not quite as good as what they was way back then, but it's not a decimated fishery. It's still actually a very good fishery. So that's the most important thing, considering we've had such a boom in population and the amount of boats as well. So
it's fascinating. A lot of people that aren't involved in sort of like the outdoor sort of lifestyle, whether it be hunting, fishing, crossover between, they don't get that we generally are conservationists. And we want a flourishing population because, as you said, the big barra, you release them for someone else to catch because it's the joy and the fun of the actual catching of it and releasing it. That's not a bad thing. It's funny people have that perception, but they're not, because I just don't think they understand how much we love these things that we chase and how much excitement and fun it is being outdoors doing these things.
That's right, and even the guys in the commercial industry, they're all about trying to keep it sustainable, because if something goes wrong for them within regards to the fishery and the sustainability, well, that's going to make their life a lot harder and probably put them out of business. So, everyone in the industries up here, the different industries are very, very, thoughtful of sustainability. And realistically, nowadays we have so much more bag limits getting a lot stricter, and size limits and everything like that, which is a good thing as long as they keep it reasonable enough, so that the average guy can still head out the reef and bring home a reasonable feed of fish. So it's certainly not like it was back in the old days when they first started bag limits. Back then it was 30 of each species per person per day. So One guy could go out and catch 30 trout, 30 sweet lip, 30 emperor, 30 nannies, 30 mackerel. That's when it first started. So realistically, you're just feeding a black market, and it was pointless having bag limits anyway, because no one could really achieve it if they tried back in those days. And of course they did. It created a huge black market. But of course it's all under control now. I guess back in those days for fisheries, it was tiptoeing through the tulips as well, I guess, because they never had any information on fish stocks and stock assessments and all that kind of thing too. So, but yeah, mate, the fishery is very healthy. We've got 33% green zones in the barrier reef now. So theoretically, there's a lot of fish sort of breeding in there, and a bit of larvae spreading out to the next reef maybe, and that kind of stuff. So that's the whole idea. So we have got a lot of fishing restrictions on us now, and we do have a very sustainable fishery, largely due to a lot of that as well, how many you can take and that kind of thing now.
I mean, look, I'm a fan of it, to be honest. Like, even when I spearfishing, I only shoot what I want to eat. Like, that's it. And there's no need to wipe out a population. You want to leave a healthy population to keep breeding, to keep that sustainable resource out there. And, for all the, I guess, the bad press people do get, sometimes I think we spoke about it the other day, is that we have the grouper change down here because someone speared one and then they just blanket ban, the whole lot, and there's heaps of them out there.
Exactly.
You know, that's silly. I think that they should bring line fishing back, not spearing, because they do swim up to you. That's not even sporting. You know, so I think there's got to be that fine balance where you're trying to make everybody happy, because no one wants to see them gone. No one wants to see them hard to catch, because you want a challenge, but you don't want it impossible. You don't want to go out 20 times and not get something, because then, you know, how many people are going to stick with it if that happens? That's not the objective for everybody. Everyone wants to have fun. That's sort of what we're here for at the end of the day.
Yeah, for sure, mate. Exactly. And you know, with that groper thing too, I mean, some of these groups that are a little bit out after us hunters and fishermen would like to see us not hunting or fishing at all. Yeah. So we've got that to combat with as well. And yeah, those sort of people don't realise that we actually do like to look after what we do.
Yes,
and,
100%.
Yeah, they need to kind of butt out a little bit, maybe. But
it's so funny. I was talking about this. I've just had a holiday down the south coast, and I've got 2.5-year-old twins and a 4.5-year-old, and I got them their first fish, and one of my best mates, his daughter, her first fish, and took him fishing pretty much for the first time, and just the excitement and the joy on the kids was unreal. Yeah. And I sit there and think about these people that are so anti-fishing. And we put everything back, except the octopus, so I kept that and ate it. But the fish were only small. We put them all back. That was such an enjoyable experience, to the point that I've got my kids, my boys especially, just on me going, can we go catch a big fish? Can we go catch a big fish? And they love your Instagram. I've been, when I'm sort of scrolling and they see a fish, they make me watch the videos and things like that. And so they're absolutely frothing on your stuff. And look, that's a win. I just sit there and go, man, the people that are against this are missing that side of it. They're missing that not every time people go out and killing fish, and
I don't think they understand the social ramifications of taking away outdoor activities from kids in particular.
Yep, I agree.
You know, you can't just lock children up and throw a phone in front of them or games or whatever it is. And we see it in society now, and we see how a lot of it's going, and it's a bit of a train wreck, and we all know that. So, yeah, taking kids away from the great outdoors is not a good thing. And we see it all, and not just kids, but everybody for that matter, you know. And for men's health as well. We get so many emails from people saying that you've changed my life. You've changed my husband's life. He's now out with the kids all the time. He actually brings something home. The kids are really excited now because we actually catch something, and, you know, just so many emails along those lines. And, you know, guys, we got a lot of the guys in the armed forces, you know, PTSD guys and stuff. And some of them would never leave home, and, you know, they had a lot of problems and issues in their lives. And the first guy was, he was really suffering bad, and his missus bought him Barra Basics. And he actually watched it, and it got him keen, and he actually started going out and started working for him. And it's changed his life. So
that's so cool to hear. And I'm a school teacher, high school teacher, and I'm a big proponent. I'm always on my kids, and I even set up an outdoor education course to teach them to showcase what the outdoors can mean, and the skills it can teach you, and the resilience and a bit of adversity and things that, but the enjoyment that comes from it as well. And I've said from the get-go, I want my kids outdoors. Like, they don't have, you know, they don't really watch TV much. They're outside playing, and we're pretty lucky. We've got a bit of land, so we've got, you know, chickens, and they're just riding the bikes. And I remember growing up like that and being involved in fishing and prawning and diving, and they're the best memories. I don't remember sitting at home watching a TV show. And, you know, look, I'm sort of glad that I grew up without social media, and, you know, it is a big part of people's lives these days. Yeah. But I think that for everyone that's in this generation of phones and social media, there has to be that escape and that outlet. And I think the best way to do that is outdoor things. And you're right, though, and I talk about it with hunting a lot too, and fishing's the same. If people go out and they're not having success over and over and over, it's pretty easy to see people drop off because we do live in a society of instant gratification now where people want it instantly. They don't want to wait.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
I'm glad to hear that, people are doing the courses and learning really quickly. And, I saw that with my mate when we went fishing. He's pretty open that no one's ever shown him. So we literally bought his first rod and we set it up, and I was having to bait it and rig everything up. But he caught a stingray and a shovel nose, and he had a blast. It was the first things he's ever caught, and
Hey, that's a good start, mate. Test the drag out,
mate. Start the game and just go. And he was like, "This is cool." So hopefully that's another person onto it, and then it just spreads, and that's not a bad thing. So, I do love when I hear that people are changing their lives, and obviously yourself doing that for other people is fantastic because it's rewarding.
Exactly, mate. Yeah. I mean, what we didn't to start off with, the online fishing courses were more for me to, as soon as I reached 50, it was like, out in the sun all day and everything, day after day after day, I was coming home and I was really starting to suffer, It was like my body said, well, you've had way too much vitamin D in your life. It's time to change things up. And over the next year, I had to try and talk my charters into not coming up anymore, which was a bit difficult. So it took a while to actually sort of push right away from the charters totally. So Karen and I got together and put our heads together and thought, well, surely we can make an income from you not being out on the water so much. And we thought, well, let's try the online course. Online courses for all sorts of things were starting to get a bit of traction. And we thought, well, we'll try one on a recreational product and let's see how it goes. And sure enough, our first course was Barra Basics, and on the first launch, it went very, very well. And Karen quit her full-time job with Marine Parks, and I kept going with charters until they waned off, until I had my cut-off date. And every night I'd edit till 1 or 2 in the morning and get up at 5:30 and go and do a charter. Oh. It nearly killed us.
Yeah.
It really, I know it looks like, we just go and film videos and make a course and that's it. There's actually so much that goes into it because we build conceptual videos as well in the courses.
Okay.
Where you do like a classroom style conceptual video and it's all in front of you on the screen and we talk about it and this, that, and the other. And then we back that up by going out into the field with a demonstration video. So it's like you're out there with me doing it. And people can go back and watch these things time and time again. So it's not like you just get it once and that's it sort of thing. You get that you just create an account with us and you can get back in as many times as you like. But yeah, mate, it's they're very well structured in that manner, and people learn from them very easily. And of course, it's all the shortcuts of someone who's been living and breathing fishing all their life on the water. So you soon learn a lot very quickly and become a competent fisherman pretty quick.
Well, I was going to ask you, what's the longest charter you had? Because I know my brother went up there and they did a fishing and spearing one on the reef somewhere, obviously where you can. And I think they were out for like 10 days. And I was they were trying to get me to go, and thank God I didn't because I heard about the swells and and the journey. And I was just like, no, man. I was like,
10 days of seasickness, mate.
Oh, God, that would have been hell. But how long you been out there? What's the max one?
Oh, I mean, the marlin seasons up north, you'd have like different customers. Some might be 3 or 4 days, some might be 10 days, some might be 7 days, where they fly into one of the motherships. The motherships used to park in behind all the ribbon reefs from number 10 down to number 3. And or you could go to Lizard Island and your clients could stay at the resort and you've got like an 8-mile run out to the top of number 10 ribbon to start your fishing.
Okay.
So whereas the motherships, you're right there, you're on the ribbons, you're around the corner and you got the big baits in and you're fishing straight up. But yeah, but the whole marlin season is to go anywhere from 60 to 85 days kind of thing, sometimes a little bit longer. But that's generally, that's the time that you're pretty much out at sea, but even though you've got different clients. So that would be the longest period at sea during the marlin seasons. But our barra charters, they were mostly a lot of day trips, and then we also had a lot of interstate and overseas groups that had come over for 5, 7, 10 days. But that would be the same thing, back to the accommodation each day. I'd go home and pick them up the next day, next day sort of thing. So we weren't actually out at sea for any length of time. But yeah, the marlin seasons were pretty busy and kept us out there.
With the deep sea stuff, have you... I like to ask people this because I'm sort of old school. I like the baits, but with the new plastics, do you have a preference? And is it species specific?
I used to be a bait fisherman for years, of course, like we all did. We had no choice. There was no plastics or jigs back then. But yeah, I rarely bait fish now. I mostly use slow pitch jigs. It's a fantastic form of fishing. Most jigs will catch fish, but some are better than others. And it really is rewarding because you're feeling them, you're actually getting that fish to bite the lure and you're actually hanging on to it when they hit and all that sort of thing rather than just waiting for the bite on the end and that sort of thing. But, in our coral trout course, we do cover, in our courses, we still cover all the different forms, bait, lure, the whole lot. But yeah, personally, I just jig these days, and slow pitch jigging is so much fun, and you can get fish that are a little bit unreactive at the time, non-responsive at the time, and just the movement of the jig and that can actually instigate a little bit of a wow moment for them, and they all come up and fight over it, and you nail a fish. Whereas sometimes in some situations with no run, you might sit there on a hot day in the middle of summer with no run. You got schools of red emperor and nanny guy below you, and they won't bite at all, especially if you get winds blowing off the land over here. That's the toughest breeze that we have. Everything that blows on shore is a good direction for fish to bite, but anything that blows off the coast can be rather difficult, especially offshore for the reefs. So mate, it's jigging's my favourite, and probably always will be unless they come out with some other method. But plastics, vibes, that works very well on things like coral trout. Sinking stick baits, we use them as well for trout and finger mark and all those sort of things. You just use the sinking stick baits the same way that you would use a vibe. You just jig it on up and then just let it fall back down to the bottom again under its own weight. Right. Don't hold it up. Just let it fall. Just try and keep that little bit of slack between the rod tip and the lure. And you'll still feel the bite because you're using braided lines for that kind of thing. And but the best thing about a sinking stick bait over a vibe is when the lure is falling, they flutter. They flutter like a dead herring, an injured herring falling down, whereas a vibe just falls flat on its face. Because what gets the fish's interest the most is when the lures are falling. That's when they always hit you. All those demersal species down there that you jig on, they never hit you on the jig up with a vibe. They only hit it as it falls, and it's the same with the sinking stick baits. So when your lure is falling, no matter what it is, if you can make it look that bit injured, then that's just that little bit better bite rate. And I've noticed that a lot, that we with the sinking stick baits, we get a better bite rate than using vibes. And we have some of those lures. I've outsourced some of them. We've got we do have an online shop, but it's not a massive shop. It's just a little bit of our merch and my 3 favourite lures for barra fishing, shallows. I have a really good slow pitch jig that works really well, the Levitator, and our sinking stick bait, the Pillager. It's a 36 grams sinking stick bait. So they're the only 3 lures I have. They work really, really well. Catching anglers lots of fish, so that's a good thing.
Do you find you have favourites? Like that's been something throughout your sort of fishing career that you've had your favourite go-tos of different ones?
Yeah, definitely, mate. Especially our scale blazer, the barra lure. They came into the country. I didn't design that one, of course. I have designed the colours and the contrast in the ones in our shop. But they did come out years ago. They were made in America, and a lot of companies grabbed hold of them. I think they went to China and it was copied and all this sort of thing. But they were just a very, very good shallow water barra lure. And I don't know what happened between the manufacturers and the guys that were bringing them in, but they stopped and people, couldn't get them anymore and that. So, but I found them and got some good proper contrasting colours, because the ones we used to change the colours on them and contrast them up a little bit to suit the dirtier water situations for barramundi. And of course we noticed the difference with that working, and all the colours we have now have those contrasts in them. And yeah, I'm looking forward to drowning a few very shortly, mate, getting some nice barrows on them.
Yeah, it's coming up to the season.
Yeah.
I had a mate, and a shout out to Rick, but we were chatting today, and I said we were having a chat this afternoon, and he goes out with his mates, and he was saying they're chasing big snapper, and he said,
"Oh yes,
interesting, but they found, and I'll probably get this wrong. I think he said that the plastics don't get as much action, but will get bigger fish than the bait, or vice versa. Have you found things like that you get bigger fish one way or the other, or is it, in your opinion, hasn't really mattered that much?
Hasn't really mattered that much. No, not with our tropical species. But even though snapper fish, just like fingermark and other foragers, I haven't sort of done much of it. I've done a little bit down towards Moreton Island there, but never ever done bucket loads of pink snapper fishing. So whether that's something related to that species, I'm really not sure, mate, but I don't notice it so much up here. We still catch a lot of very large fish on the jigs, just as like we do on the baits. So, but yeah, mate, no, that's not kind of really a trend up here so much, but it could be with the snapper. Yeah. Definitely. You don't, yeah.
Yeah, it was just something we were sort of talking about when we were having a chat, and he, it's fascinating for me when I've had that. We used to, my parents live up there, just at River Heads across from Fraser Island there, and so we go up and down the rivers a fair bit, the Mary and the Susan, and we were out with the neighbour, and him and I were not catching anything, and we're literally 30 metres away from my old man's boat with my wife and whatnot, and she was just reeling him in time after time. We're using the same baits, same everything, and we're just sitting there going, what the hell? We're throwing into the same spot, and I think she caught like 12 fish to me, not getting a bite.
Well, it could have been something to do in relation to the spot, mate, because each different spot, whether it's a deep hole, a rubble pad, this, that, the other, they'll all have that comfort zone in relation to current.
Where they can go.
And they can be, in some situations they can be against the ledge on the bank, even though you've got a beautiful deep hole out here in the middle of nowhere. At that particular part of the current, they may not be in the hole. They might be squeezed against the side. So even though you both might have been fishing, for example, say in the hole together, where the fish were for everybody else at the time was suitable to what the tide was actually doing. Yeah.
Well, that brings me to some of the crazy. I'm a tech guy, love technology, and
I hate it, except for sounders.
Well, that's where I was going. I was going to say the sounders now. Like, my God, obviously I don't have a boat. One day I will, but the new things that are coming out, like side sounders.
Yeah.
Like, I love your videos when you're showing that and talking about that. How bloody cool are they that you can now pick up your pelagic and your bait fish and things like that? Tell us a bit more about those. How far out do they go? Like, that seems like a massive game changer compared to just looking for like the birds hitting the water and things like that.
Oh, for sure, mate, for sure. Because you can see like tuna schools miles out the other side of you now, and bait schools and all that sort of thing, and of course what's happening on the bottom too if you're just looking for bottom fish. But it all depends on frequency versus power ratios for the transducers. In deep water, there's no point in taking a high frequency like 1070 or 1200 kilohertz and expecting it to read any deeper than, say, 15 to 20 meters. And to get any coverage as well, you're just not going to get it. That's when you need your lower frequencies, the further you head out. And that's why I'm affiliated with Garmin a lot. They have some fantastic products, and they have a side imaging transducer for deep water and the GT51. And it is absolutely brilliant. And like in 120 meters of water, I can still see 100 meters either side of me before it starts to diminish. Whereas, inshore, a higher frequency, even with the same power behind it, it won't see any deeper than 20 meters. So that's why in our sounder courses, we structure it to teach people about what frequency they need to use as they go to different depth ranges and all that kind of thing. Because even though those high frequencies inshore, they're going to give you an absolutely crystal clear look at what's going on. You can see the shape of the fish. You can see what the species is. There's not much guessing anymore, whereas those lower frequencies that you're using offshore, if you were to use them inshore, then they get very grainy. It's because of the lower frequency. There's not as many parts of the frequency touching each object. A high frequency, an object will get touched a whole bunch of times. With lower frequencies, not as many. So you don't get the resolution. But the lower frequencies drive a lot further, whereas the higher frequencies don't go as far. So there's a bit of a trade-off there. But getting it right is very important, especially when it comes to buying a sounder. It's not so much about your sounder, your head unit. It's more about the transducer that you're going to buy. And of course, in some aspects, the really cheap head units are probably have lesser power ratings, and of course they're more for inshore and that. Whereas the top of the range stuff and that you can plug 1 kilowatt straight into the back of the units now. So technology's come a long way, mate. And you got LiveScope now, where you can see Garmin brought out LiveScope, and the other brands have now followed on. That's actually live sonar, where you can see the shape of the fish and you can see them swimming around live, like what's happening there at the time. So you can see where he's swimming. If you set your transducer pole up right so that it's in the center of your perspective mode, you can see where he is in relation. Oh, he's at 10 o'clock. Right, I'll start casting over there. And then you can see your lure coming along back to the boat, and you'll see whether that fish has got interest on it or not, to see whether he's following it or not. Because a lot of the times, if you're not using LiveScope, you don't really know if you've got a fish this far from your plastic all the way into your boat. Sometimes they will. They'll just follow and follow and follow. And when you do see them following, if you do something different, like a pause or a quick twitch and a drop and a pause, and then just a slow retrieve again after that, the fish can just bang, smack it right there and then, because it's done something different. Other times they'll just take it on a slow roll all the way. But LiveScope just allows you to see what's going on. It's a great observational tool. And it's not something that you use at speed. It's only for when you're sitting on a school of fish. Whereas all our other stuff, we use them for assessment and finding schools of fish.
It's pretty cool when you think about that you can see what's going on and if you've got interest from the fish or not, and be able to change your tactics.
Yeah, exactly.
That was never around. Like when growing up with mum and dad, obviously they had the fish finder, very old, the old school with the analog sort of fish in the 3 different sizes. That's what we were running.
My dad had one of them.
Yeah, and I still remember it on Dad's big yellow boat, and you'd sit there and go, "Oh, that's a big one. What is it?" Like now you have that bit more perspective and getting to see and go, "Oh, is that relatively, is that the target species you're sort of going for?" And in fact, is it? We've got all this technology, and as you were talking about before, that the fish stocks are still pretty damn good up there. It's amazing that that's sort of happened because of the technologies. Not made it easier, but really probably given anglers a bit more of a hand.
Oh, definitely, mate. And also something else that's taken a lot of pressure off our wild fishery, in particular barramundi, is the fact that all the impoundments now, the stocked impoundments, I mean, that's great. I mean, early on in the piece, a lot of people would say, "Oh, they're not real barramundi." They're only, they're fake barramundi kind of thing, because they're stocked impoundment, easy to catch and all that sort of stuff. But it's, I kind of started off with a little bit of an opinion like that too, but it didn't take me too long to realize, hey, this is going to help a lot of beginners because they are a bit easy to catch, and it's going to spread out the effort. And of course, there's tournaments and that now where the guys get up on the dams and have their tournaments and things as well. And just takes a lot of pressure off the wild saltwater stocks in general, I think, mate. So the impoundments are actually a good thing.
So what's some of the coolest stuff you've seen with one of the finders when you've been running different things? Is there things that have popped up that you've gone, that's bloody cool?
Oh, mate, we found all sorts of bits and pieces, but I think shipwrecks get me intrigued a lot. I mean, you do see a lot of shipwrecks marked on charts, which are the ones they kind of know about, but some of the places we go up past Lizard Island and Cooktown and that, in the old gold rush days, mid to late 1800s, there's still a lot of boats missing that sank up there, and especially during some of the big cyclones. Cyclone Mahina killed 90-odd people in Bathurst Bay, the Pearl Farm there, and sunk about 150 boats. That was back in 1911, I think it was. But so many shipwrecks yet to be found, and Karen and I are pretty lucky because when we travel long distances up there, even though our game boat will do 33 knots, we travel at 8 knots because that's where our fuel ratio is really, really good, and we can do 10 times the range as what we would do if we were cruising, at cruising speed. But and of course we tow a 6.5 meter tender with us. But travelling at 8 knots, we find so much stuff. Yeah. And on the side imager, especially with the GT51, because I've got them in both boats. I've also got a dual pair in the game boat too. And we have actually found 2 of these historic shipwrecks from that era. There's no big superstructure or anything on the sounder. With timber vessels and stuff, they were all, after a while, everything above the bottom kind of eventually rots. And all you're left with is like a cigar shape in the bottom, the shape of the hull, and just a big imprint like so. And that's just the hull impression down the bottom, and the hull sort of keeping the whole thing in place. But all the superstructure and that's gone. So that's how we recognise them on the side imager. And of course, if you look really hard and you run over them with down image and use the highest frequency you can for that available depth, then we can start to see bits and pieces down in the bottom of the hull. And some of them, there's bits and pieces of square stuff, which obviously is man-made. It's not a coral bommy. Yeah. Because down image gives us so much more definition of the 3D world than what 2D will. Because 2D sounders is trying to put a 3D world on a 2D screen. But the down imaging, even though it's not full 3D, is because of the angle and the frequency of the beams, it does give you a better look at the shape of things. And that's how we could sort of see all the square stuff down in the bottom of this one. And we don't know much about it yet. It's in 30 metres of water, and to the bottom of the hull is 40 metres. So it's a 10 metre impression in the bottom, approximately 80, 90 metres long, somewhere there. So, yeah, mate, we'll definitely get up there and have a dive on it one day, and who knows what's on it. It'll either be Spanish, Portuguese or Chinese. That's most of the boats that came over during the gold rush days were from those countries, and a lot of them had gold on board.
Yeah. Well, but, that's bloody cool in itself, just finding something like that's exciting, because you think about the sea is just, it's huge. And it's
well, a lot of them did actually also have silver on board. They weren't just coming over to take the gold. They used to trade in silver and all sorts of things as well. So they had that kind of stuff on the boats all the time. That's another interest outside of fishing for me. I really find the history of shipwrecks, and especially the gold rush days, and that up there has taken a lot of my interest. And as I get a little bit older, while I'm still fit enough, I'd probably like to go and do that, have a dive on them, and just find out a little bit more about them. I don't want to go bringing up bucket loads of gold, because that's actually illegal. And we have actually done the right thing and reported them, but the authorities weren't interested in their positions or nothing. So anyway, that's fine. Yeah, there you go. They said, "Oh, let us know what you find." So shipwrecks over 75 years old, you can't take anything off them because they're deemed historic.
Yeah, right. Mate, history fascinates me. Of like, you think about whether it be the First Fleet or whoever, just navigating, going to parts unknown, just across endless, expansions of ocean. It's just,
how they done it back then, mate. I mean, everyone's got GPS now, and you got your Navionics app or Garmin or whatever it is on your phone as well. So if your GPS cacks it, well, you've always got that to get home on. People don't know how easy they got it, but so back in my day when I first started out, and we were doing everything by compass and radar, looking for the radar beacons on the reefs, and he's turning up the sea clutter on rough days to see the breakers on the reef and the shape of the breakers, and then we refer that to the charts just to make sure we were going to the right reef. And there were so many little tricks and bits and pieces we used to use back then to get ourselves out and get ourselves back without all this technology. And I think today, if LGPS went down, I think there'd be a lot of people struggling because they didn't grow up using these techniques and learnings from the old days.
Mate, I see the amount of people struggle just at a boat ramp, just when it comes to launching. And where we used to go out of Ulladulla, there's a bommy right in the middle. So when you go out of the harbour and go straight, you sort of got to stick right or left because there's a big bommy in the middle. And the amount of people that got stuck and got in trouble and ran ashore there and just caused unknown damage, you just sit there and then go, man, imagine, what people get up to in their little, boat compared to these big ass ships. And, doing it without all the tools that we've got nowadays is just, it's unreal. Like the fact
I'm sure there's a lot of accidents out there and just things that accidentally go wrong for a lot of people. Even experienced people will run into that. But yes, there is that quite a good percentage of people that really need to do a quite in-depth boating course or something before they even think about hitting the water. And that's actually one of the courses we're thinking about filming next year. A lot of information on, how to navigate when things go wrong. Also how different boats ride differently in different oceans and how you should, approach different things, give people alternatives for different routes to get somewhere instead of doing it the hard way. There's will be all sorts of tricks and bits and pieces that we've learned ourselves over the years. So we are thinking about doing that next year when we finish a few more projects. But doing a course on boating safety and it's not just a course like getting your boat license or anything like that. It's a lot more in depth. It's about how to get out there, how to get yourself back safely, a lot more in depth. So looking forward to filming that.
Well, it's probably needed. I mean, the amount, like in my short experience around sort of different ramps and things like that, there's always something going on or someone doing something silly. And God bless social media now for that, because you just see so much of it and have a good laugh and a giggle over it. It's probably needed for a lot of people because you don't cover that in the boat course. Well, I haven't done mine. I've had my boat license since I think I was like 18, so I don't, haven't done it in a long time, so I'm not sure what it's like now. But it was just the rules, do your questionnaire, and then that's it, good to go. Unless you've got someone that knows what they're doing teaching you, you've grown up around it, it is very difficult. And I've sort of been lucky enough, obviously, the family's been all involved, and my wife grew up with massive boats and Whitleys and things like that. So we're both sort of pretty, relatively good with the water and boats and whatnot. But for some people, they don't have that, and they'll just go out and buy a boat, and you can see how they get in trouble. No, exactly. I remember one of my dad's best mates. I remember he launched his for the first time, drove it from South Australia all the way up to New South Wales. We used to caravan down at Ulladulla, and he launched it in the lake, and they forgot to put the bungs in, and it just filled up, and he'd ripped the trailer out and drove off, and he left his wife in it, and it just, by the time he got back, it was 3/4 full of water. It was just an absolute nightmare, and just little things like that, but he'd never been on a boat. Right. So he'd bought this brand new spanking boat the first time he's launched it, and just, it's just sunk on that. And it's pretty funny.
They do say that there are those people who have left their bungs out and their boat's partially sunk, or it's sunk at the boat ramp, and there are those people who are about to do it. So I've never done it. I'm very, very lucky. I've nearly done it once, though, I will admit. Things like that can slip past you. But when you consider how many thousands of times I've launched a boat and retrieved the boat once, well, I didn't do it, but nearly once, I think I've been very lucky.
So, mate, most anglers do have some sort of, traditions or superstitions and things like that. Mm-hmm. Do you have any with your breadth of experience, or do you think because you have done it for so long, it's just part and parcel now?
Yeah, because we've done it for so long now, it's all just part and parcel. But in the early days, we used to muck around, and especially in the game fishing fleet, all about the bananas being bad luck at sea and everything like that. Some people take that really, really seriously, actually. I mean, a little bit too serious, but most of us, it's a big joke and all that. And, the tournament on the briefing nights of the tournaments, there'd be, some of them we'd just go around and we'd get a bunch of bananas and we'd go and put bananas in everybody's rod holders and all that. We used to have a lot of fun. Used to string water balloons up the outriggers and of course, the outriggers would be over the walkways, and as soon as someone would walk past, you give it a flick, and out comes a water bomb. And we used to do all sorts of crazy stuff. Yeah, it was good fun.
Well, I mean, that's what it's about. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think sometimes the fishing community gets a bit of a bad rap because, there's this perception people are very secretive of their spots and whatnot, that no one's willing to help other people. But I don't necessarily think that's the case. Like, I mean, it's a funny one. I talk about this with hunting all the time too, is that some people are funny. They won't even give you an area. Or a state. We talk about state forests, and like I say which state forest I go to. It doesn't really bother me because they're massive. Like, you'll probably never ever go where I went. But some people get really tricky about that, and they won't say a thing. And same, I've noticed that with fishing throughout the years, is that it's this big sort of, well, for some people it's this big secret of where they go and whatnot. Do you find has that been your experience, or do you think like it's overblown?
Well, that's why in our courses we teach people to go and find all these new honey holes that have never been fished before, so they can do it for themselves rather than, you get a lot of GPS lists around these days, which are hookup marks that trawlers have printed out and given to people. But you know what? Thousands of people now have those.
Oh, yeah.
And those spots are not going so well simply because of the amount of people that have them. Yeah. And that's why we teach people to go and find all of the indiscriminate stuff, and a lot of it's very small. And that's where, with the sounder courses and that come in too, because we can teach people to find these little tiny, tiny spots. And of course, they've been left alone, and most of them do have a pretty good population of fish on them. So, and the thing is with small spots too, once you catch a few fish, they generally spook and the rest go off the bite. That's why we like to fish wonky holes, because you get, a couple of fish, the rest go off the chew, and then we move to another one. That's why we have a portfolio of them. Yeah. We're finding big numbers of them. But yeah, as far as the secret spot, mate, they're only so secret, I guess. These days too, you got a lot of people in the smaller boats too that have the smaller range radars that'll fit on their hard tops and that now. So people are pinging you from a distance regardless. So, it's one of those things, mate, we've had to grow up with and that. So that's why fishing during the week's a good thing, away from the weekends. That's one thing I like to do. And these days, now that I don't sort of do charters anymore, I mostly like fishing remote. And we head up to Lizard Island and beyond every year. We do them a couple of months up there in our big boat, and numerous trips up to Cooktown throughout the year in the small boat. We tow it up there and just do day trips out of there as well. So they're the areas I like to go these days, and just see so many different things up there in those remote areas, Well, for us, it's not so much fishing for me now, like we were just talking a little bit about before. It's not so much about fish all day, like we used to when we were younger and working on charter boats and stuff. For me now, all we do is we go out and we catch enough for our content that we need for that particular thing. Sometimes it's only 3 fish or 4, 5, 6, 7 fish. Generally no more than that. That's all we need. And we let go what fish we can let go in relation to depth and barotrauma and that sort of thing. Any fish that are too far gone, we keep them, and that's generally only a couple, and we eat that during the trip or that night or for lunch. And if we get a 3rd or 4th fish that dies on us or we take, there's always a few yachties back in the bay that love a feed of fish. They don't go fishing themselves; they're just up there relaxing, and we just drop a fish over here and there, But and for us, we do it. We do it all in about half an hour to an hour. And then we go exploring for the rest of the day. We go exploring islands and snorkeling, and Karen, being a marine biologist, even though she's not in the game these days, we still like looking at different areas of coral. We keep a track on the coral cover up here in a number of different areas. We keep an eye on the bleaching and all that sort of stuff from year to year. We video the same places and take notes of what's happened and stuff like that. So, and just recently there's a very rare whale that lives in northern Great Barrier Reef waters the size of adolescent humpback. It's called an Amura's whale. And all the years I've spent up there and all my mates and other skippers that I talk to have never seen one. They are very, very rare. And Karen's always wanted to find, because 3 years ago on our way to up past Lizard Island, in the middle of summer when the humpbacks are not there, we actually saw a whale the size of a adult adolescent humpback. And we've gone, what the hell's this, And we've done some research, and anyway, we found out about it. Because he didn't pop up again, we didn't see that one again. So it's been a bit of a dream of Karen's to go and find one of those whales. And last year we saw one again. So the numbers are, and there's been a couple of commercial fishermen I know that have actually seen a couple in the last couple of years too. So maybe their numbers are getting a little bit better, and we're starting to see a few more roll up in recent years, which is great to see, of course. We all know how well the humpback populations have come good over the years through the protection and stuff. But yeah, we were heading up there this year. We were going to go all the way up to near Henry Reef where all the upwellings are, where all the plankton comes up, all the manta rays feed and everything like that, because we thought that would be the best place to find one of these whales. But we didn't end up going up that far due to a medical condition that popped up, and Karen got gallstones. And so we left Lizard Island just a few weeks ago, and we were coming back, and we ran across one of these whales right there, and we've got drone footage of it for 2 hours and documented them, zoomed right in and had a really, really, really good look at the whale, and we've got some fantastic footage of it. So one of those things that not many people have ever seen.
That's damn cool. And I think that's the more time out there, the more you get to see those sort of, I got brief sort of, memories of seeing, the birds diving and the fish jumping and whatnot. And I wish back then we had the drones to be able to see that from above, because we just didn't have that. And that's
some of the drone footage we've got, of different bits and pieces. Not just that, some of the beautiful landscapes up north too. It's just amazing. We've taken pictures of. We're going to get some really big pictures for all the walls of some of the landscapes we've got, and some of them have got thunderstorms in the background. We've got the lightning coming down with it as well, and
just the colours of the water. We had our honeymoon up at Airlie Beach, and I can't remember what it's called, but it was like the panorama or something right up top, the the penthouse up the top of the thing, just looking over everything. It was just amazing. Like you could not have asked for just a more picturesque view. It was unreal, and
all the islands and
it was unreal. The colours of the water up there just is so. It's just beautiful. It's hard to capture, I think, on an image. It's hard to really reflect how actually pretty it is in real life.
Oh, it is, mate. It is. The best part about the Whitsundays is going around to Whitehaven. That's the one of the best areas there. But because of the silica and all that. But that's what we get north of Cooktown as well. That's where Cape Flattery sand mine is. About 75% of the world's glass has come from Cape Flattery since 1956. And the sand dunes up there are just insanely endless along the coast. And when you get those beautiful ranges in the background, they've got a lot of those crests on them from the old water levels back in eras when the water levels were much higher and that. And when they get green, and then you get the white sandy sand dunes, and some of the dunes are orange and red as well. It's just absolutely incredible, mate. You've never seen anything like it. And because of the silica, the amount of silica up there, even in close to the coast, the water is absolutely stunning. Yeah, it's just lovely.
Just unreal, yeah. How are you finding the coral and that with the bleaching and that? Has there been a big difference that you noticed?
Mate, you'll probably hear or see on social media that the reef's dead and dying and has been for ages. No, it's definitely not. It's actually the record coral cover at the moment. They've only been taking records now for 38 years. I first started swimming on the reef 42 years ago or whatever. So I've seen coral bleaching come and go. It's a natural process that happens through a number of different things. Water heating too much. That's why there was a big one in 2016. There was a bit last year as well. And that's generally associated with La Nina weather patterns. That's that warm water current that brings us the excess rain during our wet seasons down the East Coast. And we also get those heat waves, marine heat waves with the La Nina. And when you get that, if it lasts too long and you get really low tides, in conjunction with it. And if you get excess rainfall on the surface of the water out there, that will also have an effect. And it can depend on where the actual corals are in relation to different parts of the reef. Are they exposed to the north-south current, which keeps the water cooler and flowing onto them, or are they in a back lagoon that's just sitting in a hot pot? So it's all relative to where the corals are, the conditions that are happening at the time, and honestly, it doesn't take that long to bounce back. Some of the footage we've got, some of the coral we have got up there is absolutely amazing. We found a couple of little bits on our trip just recently. It's mainly the plate corals that suffered, and that's directly off Cooktown because we had those record rainfalls up there last year with Cyclone Jasper. And a lot of the reefs out the front of Cooktown copped a lot of silt from the Endeavour River. And we saw that last year after that happened, but the coral hadn't started to be affected by it. But we went back to it just recently. All the other corals are fine. It's just the plates that have perished, but they'll be back. Give them 2 years, they'll be back. But everything else is fine. And we've gone and checked out other sites further north, and still some stunning coral. Yeah. Absolutely stunning. So we'll be doing a blog on it soon, and we'll put up a few posts on our Facebook page and stuff of the coral and stuff up there. So yeah, mate, there's a lot of things driven in this world these days. I won't get all into the climate change thing too much, but it's all interlinked, and there's a whole heap of people that rely on funding and a lot of business opportunities if you say the sky's falling, and we all know what's going on pretty much.
Yep.
A lot of us do anyway. But yeah, mate, nothing wrong with the coral. They've done core sampling on Parietes coral and stuff like that, where coral core sampling has gone back 400 years, and there's bleaching all the way back to 400 years.
Oh, it makes sense.
That's well before the Industrial Revolution.
Yeah.
It's a cyclic thing. Some years will be worse than others. Some years you might not see it for 4 or 5, 6, 7 years. Other times you might get it year after year after year backing up, but it'll only be certain locations on the reef. And of course, they do say mass bleaching, which makes it sound like the whole reef's dead. Tell the overseas tourists, everyone overseas, the greenies, the barrier's dead and dying, don't go there, rah, rah, rah. And it's not. It's absolutely beautiful. And it's just such a shame that those kind of things hurt tourism so much over here, when it's not needed whatsoever.
And it's such an amazing part of the world. It's, North Queensland is one of my favourite spots to get up to and go to. And that's not just because I'm a Cowboys fan, but, Townsville's a great place to go and whatnot, and everything up there I do thoroughly enjoy. Mate, before we exit, I need to know, someone with your vast experience in fishing, what is your favourite fish to eat?
My favourite fish to eat, although there's some very good ones out there. Probably, I would say, there's some that you can't take anymore, like barramundi cod and Maori wrasse and stuff like that. But I would probably say fingermark, or known as golden snapper in the territory. Fingermark would probably be my favourite. Absolutely stunning white flesh, beautiful to eat. It's very versatile. You can do it so many different ways. If I had a close second, I would have to say probably a tusk fish. Tuskies are pretty nice too. I love tuskies. Yeah. So that'd be coral trout's good, but I find it a little bit flavorless. A lot of people say that about coral trout. Stunning white meat, and it does taste good if you mix a few herbs or bits and pieces with it. But as far as all-round flavors and that, and a lot of people will say the same thing. Fingermark is right up there with a lot of people. But it'd have to be my favourite, I'd say, mate. Yeah.
Yeah, no, nice. I am envious that you guys have all that up there, and I was lucky enough. My brother bought a heap of coral trout from that trip down. He brought it back, and we've been living off that for quite a while now, so I can't complain. But
that's it, mate.
All right, mate. Where can people find you and find your courses? So,
mate, our website is ryanmoodyfishing.com. We have all our courses over there. We have a number of hundreds of free blogs on there with great handy tips that a lot of people get a lot out of, and of course all the real juicy stuff's in all our courses. And we do have sales here and there as well. So generally once a month we'll just pick one course these days and put it on sale. We used to do the whole lot 5 times a year, but honestly, the work that's got to go into all the emails and the setting up of everything was just killing us. So we've and we were doing that through COVID as well to, keep people busy. That was a very good time for us, actually, the start of COVID, because people were sitting at home and they wanting to do something, learn about a fishing course, So that was actually really good for us financially. But it's not that we're just in it for financial reasons. It's to help people out there. It's the kids that we're most concerned about. And if Dad can be a hero to his kids by catching more fish, then
so bad.
That's where it all works for me. But yeah, www.ryanmoodyfishing.com, mate. We've got a Facebook page. That's where we got most of our eggs. We started late on Insta and stuff like that. But yeah, mate, we're on all of those. And but yeah, as far as courses go, ryanmoodyfishing.com, and check out the information pages there about each one. It spells out what's in them and what you can expect and how, all the information's there.
No, I love it. And earlier in the podcast, we alluded to a code for listeners. So that is AHB25. So if you use that code on the different courses, you'll get a different discount on each one. So, mate, really appreciate you doing that for our listeners as well.
Not a problem, mate.
Guys, get out there, check it out. If you haven't, Facebook, Instagram, go check out the courses. Ryan, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the podcast, mate, and I'm sure we'll do it again down the track, mate. Enjoy. Hopefully you'll get in the water and go for a dive, and I just hope you get some big barra coming through. I can't wait to see it.
Yeah, mate, looking forward to it myself. And thanks very much, mate, for having us on the podcast, and happy hunting.
All right, guys. Bye for now. You've been listening to the Australian Hunting and Beyond podcast with Matt. Thanks for tuning in, and can't wait to catch you next time. But in the meantime, if you want more, you can find it at linktr.ee/Australian Hunting and Beyond. That will give you our YouTube, Instagram, X, Facebook, you name it. We'll catch you next time.